Okay, take two, because the first one I mumbled for 1 minute. So basically, we start in Tanya Chapter 9, and I have a question. My question is, where does the soul reside? And I'm going to give you a hint. It's a trick question. Is it the head? Pretty likely answer. Is it the heart? What the two most important organs? The head and the heart. Maybe the liver. Also absolutely critical. Obviously, there's other important critical organs as well. But there is a certain hierarchy involved in the organs. Yes, we need all of them, but except in today's generation, like sometimes you technically don't need one or two, whatever. Put that aside for now. We don't want a tangent there. The point is, where it does a soul reside? And the answer is very simply, depends which soul. Right? We have two souls, the godly soul and the animal soul. Furthermore, we said that the animal soul, I don't know if we said this, I do apologize, in these shirim, is known as the Nephesh Bahamis, the animal soul. It's also known as the Nephesh Hachiyunis, the vitalizing soul. So the very vitalizing energy that makes a person live is like an animal. And it's exactly the same. An animal eats and sleeps, procreates. What do? Our animal soul eats, sleeps, procreates. We make money. We want to make money so we can eat, sleep, and procreate. Like, it sounds ridiculous, but it's really simplified to being an animal, quite literally. And even it's known that man is likened to an animal when we eat. So it's actually literally likened to an animal. So the animal soul and the vitalizing soul can be used to a very large degree interchangeably. But that's just a bit of extra information. But the point is that animal soul, which comes from Klippus Neugel, like we said before, where is it? In the heart. Emotions, primarily emotional. And the left part of the heart. Interesting enough, how people believe that the heart is bigger is on the left side, which it's not, it's in the middle. But the heart expands into the left side like that. The muscles on the left side are bigger. I learned this in biology because from the left ventricle it pumps it to the whole body, versus the right ventricle pumps it to the lungs. Doesn't need as much power, but the left ventricle, which pumps it to the whole body, needs more strength. So the wall of the heart is larger. Now that's the biological hypothesis of modern day scientists. But the Torah is saying a little bit of a different idea. The Torah is saying that the reason the heart, the left side of the heart, is the place of the animal soul residing, because that's the place that, my wording is not the best, so apologies on this, but the concept here should be fairly simple. That's the place where the animal soul resides, and therefore the ventricle is large because it's pumping the animal soul through the whole body. You can think of it contextually like that, if that makes sense. Apologies if it doesn't. It's a bit of abstract. My wording wasn't the best. But okay, let's continue. And it's also known as being filled with blood. Very interesting idea. Dafka, the left ventricle. We know that the blood is the Nephesh from Devarim. Hence, all lust and boasting, anger, and all passions come from the heart. What about passions for God? Right? Where does that come in? So we'll see. And from the heart they spread to the whole body, also rising to the brain. The blood in the heart rises to the brain. Now, on a bit of a tangent, but really interesting side note, is that there's something known as the blood-brain barrier. If I'm quoting it correctly. And that is that there's a certain barrier between our brain and the rest of the body that stops chemicals from going through. So the blood itself doesn't really exist in the brain. I'm not an expert in this matter, but definitely some chemicals and stuff are in the brain don't go into the body, and are in the body don't go into the brain. There's a certain barrier. I don't know if it's known as like a semi-permeable membrane. Maybe that's the biological term. I could be mistaken, but it doesn't matter. The concept's quite clear. And it's really important to understand that the brain and the rest of the body, there is a disconnect. But nevertheless, there is a connect. The semi-permeable membrane allows some things to pass through. It does not that it allows nothing. So from the heart, the animal soul goes through the whole body. It goes through the brain. And from the heart, from the lust, the animalistic desire, comes an intellectual, substantiation. So a person can tell you intellectually, they can tell themselves intellectually why they have to do something. But I'll tell you the truth, it doesn't stem in the brain. Even if they think it stemmed in the brain, stem from the brain, the animal soul is deceiving them. It stemmed from the source in the left ventricle in the heart. It's quite a fascinating idea. This is how the way the animal soul works. So as much as it resides in the left ventricle of the heart, permeates the entire body. That's the short answer on where does the animal soul reside. Right. But where's the abode of the divine soul? So have a think, maybe you have background learning on this topic. It resides in the brain. And from the brain, it extends to the rest of the body, just like the brain. Even though you have that blood-brain barrier, right? From the brain, nevertheless, the brain controls the whole body. So from the brain, the mind extends through the whole body. It gives instructions to the whole body. And also, obviously, into the heart. But particularly, the divine soul resides in particularly the right ventricle, on the right side, the opposite side of the animal soul, which is quite interesting. What's the source for the left ventricle and the right ventricle? Well, this is what the Torah says. This is what the text of the very holy text of the Tanya says. I don't really, I can't substantiate it, but, with Emunah, we believe that this is the case. So first thing we notice that the right ventricle is smaller, so the passion from the godly soul might be smaller than the passions from the animal soul. So a person can have a godly passion for God, it's in the right ventricle, versus having an animalistic passion for pizza or other lusts in this world. It's important to understand a critical idea that I'm about to explain is that the divine soul, which resides primarily in the head, and permeates to the body, and particularly the right ventricle in the heart, is able, if it's given enough contemplation, enough nurturing and strengthening, is able to go from the right ventricle of the heart to permeate the entire heart. That's a very powerful process. It takes tremendous work and time and persistence in this matter. It's a lifetime dedication. A person dedicates his life to doing this type of thing. That concept is known as transforming one's animal soul, not just subduing it, but actually transforming it itself. But let's continue in the text. And then a pasuk from Koheles. The heart of the wise man is on his right. So the wise man. Wise man doesn't mean an intellectual, because I can tell you what, that a person could be an intellectual, but that intellectual can come from the animal soul. It means the idea of the godly soul contemplating on God and that residing in the heart. That's what it means. Right. Then it says the eyes of the wise man are in his head. What does that mean? In the brain, harboring his wisdom and understanding, gazing at the glory of the King and the beauty of his greatness that are unfathomable, and without end or limit, as explained elsewhere. Okay, so again, why does it say the wise man? I'm not too certain. But we're speaking about a person who's connected to their divine soul, which is in the head. Then why does it say that the eyes are in the head? Is that the faculty of contemplation? The eyes is where a person is, and the eyes seeing is mamish believing. So the faculty of contemplation, and they're really what you see, you in that realm. They're in the realm of contemplating on the greatness of God. And that's very powerful, because that thing goes into the heart. It's not that late, I'm just yawning. It happens to me. It goes into the right side of the heart that permeates the entire heart eventually. This is also known as the concept that a person can change their behaviors in any direction they want. Might take time and persistence. But a person can change their behaviors and refine their behaviors and refine their desires of the animal soul to holy desires. And that's part of this idea of the divine soul spreading. Okay, so now we're moving on to another idea. Okay, for just due to limitations, I'm going to really simplify the next bit, which is 1.5 pages. But the next bit is discussed in this idea, just expanding on it and different angles, etc. Is that one nation shall prevail over the other nation. This is in Bereshit, Genesis. And conceptually, what does that mean? The body is called a small city. So, in a city, you have inhabitants. So the body is a small city, and all the different organs, thought, speech, and action, the faculties, the powers, the abilities, the strengths, etc., are all the different parts of that city. But the body is a city. Now, when there's a king wants to rule over the entire city, obviously country or whatever, but the analogy is the city. The king wants to dominate the entire city. He's not happy with 99%. He wants 100%, and he will do everything in his power to dominate the city 100%. That is our body, the city. Who's the king? We have two kings. Sorry. 2 kings, not 4. 2 kings. The king of the animal soul and the king of the godly soul. The king wants to rule the entire city. One king is not going to negotiate with the other king. And what can happen, the animal soul king could cunningly negotiate with the godly soul king, but it's only in a way that wants to completely push the godly soul, chas v'sholem, out of the equation. It's like, we'll do 50-50 for now, but later it's going to be 100-0. Basically, that's what the animal soul does. But conceptually, each king, each yetzer, each soul, so to say, wants to dominate entirely. And the swapping over of the king that's dominant could happen very quickly in the life of a Jew. Except a split second, a person can be davening and can be contemplating of Hashem in the greatest heavens, and then the next split second he can be thinking about pizza. Now he can be thinking about anything other than davening, but that's then coming from the animal soul. And then he can jump back to thinking about Hashem's greatness. So it sounds a bit bizarre and weird, but it's a very powerful analogy that our godly soul wants to dominate the entire body, our thoughts, speech, and action, all of our behaviors, everything down to our finger movements. Our godly soul wants to be in charge of, and to make our body a dwelling place for Hashem, a holy sanctuary. Our animal soul literally wants the exact opposite, and it just manifests in different ways and forms. It really just puts up a fight. Simply put, it puts up a fight. And unfortunately, without learning Hasidus and Kabbalah, particularly Hasidus, but obviously it incorporates Kabbalah, but without learning that Pnimius Torah, in our generation, it's very difficult to, even on a more external level, win the fight. And for sure not on a deep pneumistic level, a really internal level where you're really holding deep down inside. Even people who learn Chassidus struggle. So Kal v'chomer, how much more so people who don't. So, we're learning the Tanya, and I want to actually end on this because I have to start ending now, but is that I only heard of this recently, and it boggles my mind that I did not hear this idea for years of studying the Tanya, not like hundreds of years, like whatever, 3, 4, 5 years. This is the first time I heard this idea. The Tanya has 3 names, but everyone knows it as the Tanya, and the Tanya literally means it was taught in a brisa. The point is, what does it even mean? It doesn't even make sense, Tanya, as the name of a book, grammatically and everything. But the point is, Tanya is the name of a clipper. Now, all types of clipper, all types of evil forces have names, and have different, obviously, objectives and focuses, etc. But the focus and the objective of chas v'sholem, may we not hear or see of such things, of the clip of Tanya, is to get a person to stop learning Pnimius Torah. the true internal workings of the Torah. So the Alter Rebbe, by naming his book Tanya, is breaking the force of evil in this world that stops a person from learning Pnimis Torah, and we can see the effect of that most people, I don't know percentage-wise, but most people that learn Torah, and most places in the world, are at least familiar with Pnimis Torah, and no longer is it such a distant thing. Obviously, we can all learn more of it, but it's just an idea. Okay. That's chapter 9 in a brief nutshell.